Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Nastaprayeshu abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. So Hare Krishna to all the devotees assembled today. Hare Krishna to Maharajas. Hare Krishna to all the Prabhus. And welcome to the first day of ILS. Hari Bol. Some level of higher enthusiasm would be good. You may be wondering why the sequence of verses have changed, but they have changed in consonance with the start of the ILS. The ILS is actually a combination of ideas that came from many devotees, but the most important thing about the ILS is that it is actually an opportunity for us to get sadhu sangha. In the company of saintly people, it is stated that even if one is not saintly, somehow or other, one will become saintly. In the company of drunkards, even if one continues to drink mineral water, after a while, one has to become drunkard. So Bhagavatam's principle is very straightforward. The principle of sadhu sangha. And today, you're all gathered here as leaders. And we welcome you to Sridham Mayapur because you, on your shoulders, rests such an important obligation and such an important service to Srila Prabhupada and this mission. The service of leading existing devotees to become more inspired in Krishna consciousness. And equally important, the service of leading living entities to come into Krishna consciousness, become inspired, and also become leaders. So this is a very important day for us, and we're very happy that so many of you are able to join us. And you will get so much sadhu sangha from all the devotees who are here that somehow or another this will make the congregation of devotees around the world expand. So that is why we have the verse here today. Let's chant it. Titikshati akrama vainya Upari akramatamapi Bhutanam karuna shashva Artanam shiti vrittima Titikshati akramam vainya Upari akramatamapi Bhutanam karuna shashva Artanam shiti vrittima Titikshati akramam vainya Upari akramatamapi Bhutanam karuna shashva Artanam Shitti Vrittiman. Would anyone like to repeat? Upariyakramatam-api Bhutanam Karunashashvat Vaishnavis. Bhutanam Karunashashvat Bhutanam Shiti-Vrittiman Titikshati Akramam Vainya Titikshati, tolerates. Akramam, offense. Vainyaha, the son of King Vena. Upari, on his head. Akramatam, of those who are trampling. Api, also. Bhutanam, to all living entities. Karunaha, very kind-hearted. Shashvat, always. Artanam, to the aggrieved. Shiti Vrittiman, accepting the profession of the earth. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Translation. This King Prithu will be very, very kind to all citizens. Even though a poor person may trample over the king's head by violating the rules and regulations, the king, out of his causeless mercy, will be forgetful and forgiving. As a protector of the world, he will be as tolerant as the earth itself. Please repeat. This King Prithu will be very, very kind to all citizens, even though a poor person may trample over the king's head by violating the rules and regulations. The king, out of his causeless mercy, will be forgetful and forgiving. As a protector of the world, he will be as tolerant as the earth itself. Please hear the purport. King Prithu is herein compared to the earthly planet as far as his tolerance is concerned. Although the earth is always trampled upon by men and animals, it still gives food to them by producing grains, fruits and vegetables. As an ideal king, Maharaj Prithu is compared to the earthly planet. For even though some citizens might violate the rules and regulations of the state, he would still be tolerant and maintain them with fruits and grains. In other words, it is the duty of the king to look after the comforts of the citizens, even at the cost of his own personal convenience. This is not the case, however, in Kali Yuga. For in Kali Yuga, the kings and heads of state enjoy life at the cost of taxes exacted from the citizens. Such unfair taxation makes the people dishonest, and the people try to hide their income in so many ways. Eventually, the state will not be able to collect taxes and consequently will not be able to meet its huge military and administrative expenses. Everything will collapse, and there will be chaos and disturbance all over the state. Jai Shri Prabhupada, Transcendental Purports Ki. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaure Tvishe Namaha Vancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripaha Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we start ILS today with the qualities of great leaders. And this verse in Bhagavatam tells us that Prithu Maharaj, as you all know, is a great example of leadership. And he's none other than the plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What better example can we get from Srimad Bhagavatam? As the praises by the professional reciters in this chapter describe the qualities of Prithu Maharaj, one of the very foundational aspects of a devotee is actually described in this verse. And the most important quality that Prithu Maharaj possessed is actually the quality of titikshati, the quality of tolerance. It is actually foundational not just for leaders, but for all devotees. In one way, every devotee is a leader, because every devotee is inspiring another devotee. And isn't that the foundation for leadership? Every time we have come into the movement, we have been inspired by some devotee. All of us have had that experience where some devotee tolerated us so much, beyond tolerance. Somehow they tolerated our inebrities. They tolerated our comments. They tolerated our behavior. We must have been very crude and un-Vaishnava-like. But somehow or another they were patient, they were forgetful, they were forgiving, and they were tolerant. And on the foundation of that tolerance, we became inspired. And that's why we are still in the movement. So, titikshati is the basis for all qualities that we can start off as leaders. And Bhagavatam tells us so nicely that actually when a devotee possesses tolerance, then the Lord becomes very satisfied with that devotee. This example is given in the episode in Bhagavatam when Dhruva Maharaj becomes very upset that his brother Uttama was actually killed by a yaksha. You all know the episode. And instead of just vanquishing one yaksha as a point of justice, what happens to Dhruva Maharaj is that he does not tolerate the urge to control his anger. And at that point of time, he literally decimates the entire yaksha population. And as he continues doing that, eventually Swayambhuva Manu has to come and has to speak to Dhruva Maharaj. In the 4th canto, 11th chapter, the 13th verse, 4, 11, 13, there Swayambhuva Manu gives a very nice advice to Dhruva Maharaj, which is actually very important for all of us. And he says to him, Titikshaya karunaya, maitriya chakila jantushu, samadvena cha sarvatma, bhagavan samprasidati. Samprasidati is described in the synonyms as satisfied. When Bhagavan is samprasidati, satisfied, then what happens is, ye yatma suprasidati. Then only our soul, ourselves, we can become satisfied. We cannot become satisfied until Krishna is satisfied with us. Very often we are running after satisfaction, but satisfaction eludes us because the principle in Bhagavatam is that Bhagavan must become samprasidati. Then ye yatma suprasidati. So actually Swayambhuva Manu gave such a nice advice to Dhruva Maharaj. And he said to him that, my dear Dhruva, the Lord is very satisfied with his devotee. How? When the devotee greets, this is a nice word that Srila Prabhupada uses. The word is to greet. Today all of you have come for ILS. It is our duty to greet you. Greetings is not something which is artificial. Greeting should never be a ritual. Sometimes when we're in Krishna consciousness, we meet each other, we say Hare Krishna Prabhu because we have to say it. But it should come from the heart. If something is just said as a matter of course, it is ritual. If it is said with spirit, it becomes spiritual. There is a vast difference. And the longer we stay in Krishna consciousness as leaders, the more challenging it becomes not to take this simple greeting that Bhagavatam speaks about for granted. So Swayambhuva Manu gives a nice advice. He says the Lord becomes very satisfied with his devotee when the devotee greets other people with tolerance, with mercy, with friendship, and with equality. So the starting point for mercy, friendship, and equality to come is actually on the foundation of tolerance. Nothing in Bhagavatam is accidental. No sequence is arbitrary. And no words given by Srila Prabhupada is whimsical. So if we study Srimad Bhagavatam scrutinizingly, we will understand that there is great wisdom to how the series of qualities come in all of us. So Bhagavatam tells us in 4:11-13 that the fountainhead for mercy, for friendship and equality is when we've developed the culture of greeting devotees with tolerance. And this is a very important point. If you look one verse after that, 4:11-12, or one verse before that, Prabhupada writes in the purport that what Swayambhuva Manu was trying to tell Dhruva Maharaj, you are a king. Your life is meant to be that of exemplary behavior. And that is what we are supposed to do as leaders. Prabhupada writes in that purport, you should always act in such an exemplary way that others may learn from you. And this is what Prithu Maharaj is being praised for. Tolerance is the foundation for all good qualities. And it becomes the duty and responsibility of all devotees to learn to cultivate tolerance. The whole of Bhagavatam is full of individuals who tolerated. The difference between Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni in the 9th canto was actually on the basis of tolerance. Durvasa Muni came back and saw that Ambarish Maharaj had just broken his fast in a very unique way by taking water, and he could not tolerate his anger. And therefore, provoked by his own anger, he then became agitated. And the agitation that came because of a lack of tolerance caused Durvasa Muni to travel the world on a world tour almost 3 times. And ultimately, the advice that he got from Lord Vishnu was that he shouldn't have taken that tour. He should have simply fallen at the lotus feet of a pure devotee. If he had exercised tolerance at that point, how much time he would have saved. And in that time, how many rounds of the Mahamantra he could have chanted. So actually, we waste so much time when we become intolerant. And we save so much time which is precious. Because in tolerating and developing that culture of tolerance, all that time that is freed can be connected to Krishna. So it's a very practical point. When we don't tolerate, the opposite is we will fault find and we will criticize. And that is what Durvasa Muni did. But look at Ambarish Maharaj. When Ambrish Maharaj was actually being insulted in that way by Durvasa Muni, Bhagavatam tells us that his demeanor was completely tolerant. Why? Because he was tolerating his senses. Sometimes when we speak of tolerance, the immediate reaction is we must tolerate others. I remember my spiritual master telling me, Devaki, while you are thinking that you are tolerating so many people, please don't forget how many people are tolerating you. This is something that is so easy for us to forget because we think, I'm so Vaishnava, I'm tolerating. But only Krishna and the others know how much others are tolerating us. It's a very sobering thought, but it's a very important point. So actually, Ambrish Maharaj cultivated tolerance by first of all tolerating the urges of his senses. That is the starting point of tolerance. Tolerance is not an external matter. It is an introspective matter. You find in Bhagavatam, all the great personalities always tolerate and introspect and then gain knowledge. If you read the prayers in the 3rd canto, 9th chapter, the prayers, Brahma's prayers for creative energy, you will find there is one point where Brahmaji uses the word Anusprishatat. Anusprishatat is translated very nicely by Srila Prabhupada as introspection. The first starting point of leadership is when a leader introspects upon himself or herself. Why look to the rest of the world when our own house is not in order? The best principle of preaching is very simple. If you want your neighbor's garden to look as good as your garden, make your garden the best and keep quiet. Eventually your neighbor will look at the garden to the point where one day he will ask you, what have you done in your garden that makes it look good? So actually the principle of tolerance begins with introspection. In the modern world you call it self-assessment, you call all these things. But thousands of years ago, Bhagavatam has already given the royal road to improving our behavior. So this is why it is very nicely stated that Ambrish Maharaj is the principle of tolerance. Because when Durvasa Muni tried to counteract him, Ambrish Maharaj simply depended on the Lord. So this is the science of tolerance. The more we are dependent on Krishna, the more we see Krishna's hands in all that comes to us, the more we become tolerant naturally. In the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna is described very nicely in the prayers of the Devatas. It's in the 6th canto, 9th chapter. There is 2 descriptions of Krishna. Krishna is described as Otam and Protam, vertical and horizontal. It's a very nice description. Because if you look at the fabric of your kurtas and all your cloth that you're wearing now, actually it is nothing more than fabrics of threads that are running in cross junctions. And Bhagavatam says, every thread that runs, that is Krishna. A devotee who learns to see the hand of Krishna in difficult situations, that devotee learns to become tolerant. And that is what Ambrish Maharaj saw. So because Ambrish Maharaj totally depended on Krishna, he was very peaceful. He was not agitated. And if you read the 9th canto of Bhagavatam, while Durvasa Muni was doing his world tour, going to Lord Shiva, going to Lord Brahma, and ultimately going to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and coming back to Ambrish Maharaj, what was Ambrish Maharaj doing? He was actually continuing to observe his fast. He was waiting for his guest Durvasa Muni to come back at some point so that they can break fast together. And while he was doing that, he was chanting and glorifying the Lord. Only on the basis of control of the senses, on the standard of sincere devotional service, can tolerance manifest in the heart of a devotee. So this is a very important point. What are we tolerating? We are not tolerating others. We have to tolerate the urges of our own mind, the urges of our senses. The more we can tolerate that, then this tolerance becomes externally manifested in how we greet devotees. Shri Shri Radha Madhav Ki. So every living entity is actually part and parcel of Krishna. And this is the second point of tolerance that's very important. Prithu Maharaj, you can read here, was so tolerant that even if a poor person or citizens of his state trample over his head literally by actually not following rules and regulations, he did not fail to maintain them. It doesn't say that he did not mete out justice. This is an important point. Meting out justice is one thing. As leaders, we'll always be put in a difficult situation. We'll be put to the corner where we will have to sometimes be firm. That is why being tolerant is not a weakness. Being humble is not a weakness. Being tolerant means to be empowered in such a way that when we have to tolerate our senses, if we have to tolerate the onslaughts of other living entities harassing us, we do so in such a way that even then we do not deny them their basic needs. As temple leaders, congregation leaders, we may have differences with so many devotees in so many different things. But that does not mean that the personal considerations that happen will interfere with how we continue to maintain the congregation, with how we continue to inspire the congregation. This is actually rooted in the principle of unity in diversity. This is very important, and it is inextricably linked to tolerance and the other word that's given about Prithu Maharaj, very, very kind. Prabhupada doesn't just say very kind. He doesn't say kind. He says very, very kind. The emphasis is very hard to ignore. And kindness means kindness has to be genuine. In the material world, if you say, I'm just tolerating you, it means I can't stand you actually. But what to do? I have to work with you. So somehow or another I have to continue. In the spiritual world, that is not the case. In the spiritual world, tolerance is coming from another important concept. And that concept is that ultimately, sarvasya chaham hriddhi sannivishto. Krishna is in the hearts of all living entities. Once when Prahlad Maharaj was traveling the world in the 7th canto, 15th chapter, no, it's 7th canto, 13th chapter. He was traveling the world and he came across this Avadut and he was very fascinated by him. He observed the actions of the Avadut because the Avadut appeared to be always in differing circumstances. But he was always very peaceful, always very tolerant, very forgetful of insults thrown at him, very forgetful of praises thrown at him. Very often we forget insults given to us, but we never forget the praises given to us. But in the Avadut's case, he was forgetful of both. He was very forgiving of people who thought he was crazy. He was very accepting of people who thought he was very crazy. So Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto, 13th chapter, goes up to the Avadut and asks him, Dear sir, what is it that causes you to behave in such a manner? And the Avadut's reply is very much in line with understanding the qualities of Prithu Maharaj. It is in 7:13:42. It's a very nice verse, and it's a verse that I strongly encourage all of us to read, study, contemplate, because it has so much meaning. Naham ninde nachastaumi swabhava vishamam janam etesham shreya asha se utakaitmyam mahatmani. The translation is very nice. The Avadut says, different people are of different mentalities. Full stop. That's the starting point. If as leaders we accept that proposition of Bhagavatam, half the problems are solved. Different people are of different mentalities. It's so important. Krishna has made all of us with so much variety. And yet, when everyone comes together, our tendency is, you must become like me. If you're not like me, then you're not with me. But Bhagavatam tells us that different people are of different mentalities. So if different people are of different mentalities, what does the Avadut do? Second point. He says, therefore, it is not my business. The word business is very useful. In material world, we're always talking about business. But in spiritual world, we have a business, and this is our business. The business of studying and practicing Bhagavatam. So Avadut says, it is not my business to either praise them or to blaspheme them. This is very important. If we can accept that everyone is different and has a different mentality, then from that logically will flow the idea that it is not our business to praise them or blaspheme them. If you cannot praise someone and you can't blaspheme someone, what do you do with that person? If you don't praise or you don't blaspheme, then the only thing we should be doing is to serve them. If you serve any living entity in such a way that they are connected to Krishna, then what happens? Neither praise nor blasphemy becomes important. What is more important is the fact that you are serving them. And that is what leadership is about in spiritual life. It is all about service. And it is service on the foundation of tolerance. It is service on the foundation of kindness. And it is service on the foundation of forgetting and forgiving. If we keep to our hearts every statement that devotees have made to us that hurts us, then everything as leaders that we do will become personal. You have been in situations, I'm sure, where you have a difference of opinion with someone. You can either choose to take it personally, it is an affront to our ego, or you can choose this principle. Different people are of different mentalities. It is not my business to blaspheme them or criticize them. And the Avadut ends by saying, I only desire their welfare, in hoping that they will agree to be one with the Super Soul. And Prabhupada translates that in the purport as saying that we should all agree, that we should all be aligned to the vision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the moment you are not aligned to the vision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then Bhagavatam says our minds will become dushtita matihi. Dushtita matihi. So actually a good test of whether we are tolerant, whether we are kind, whether we are actually forgiving and forgetting is how much agitated we are every day. The less agitated we are, then the more encouraged we should be that somehow or another we are aligned with the vision of Bhagavatam. This is the beauty of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is so practical that it can be immediately applied in our daily lives. It is not something in the air that sounds very good and when we go back, we don't know how to apply it. This is the beauty of Bhagavatam. So actually, to conclude this very important point, tolerance and kindness, forgetfulness and forgiveness, they all come from two things. We should always have this attitude that we should start tolerating our own senses. And the best way to tolerate the senses is not to counteract that which comes. It is stated in 1:1848 of Srimad Bhagavatam, and this is a nice verse. Tiraskrita vritpalabda shabta shipta hata api na asya tad pratikurvanti tad bhaktaha prabhavopihi. It is in reference to Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj was cursed by Shringi Brahmana. He could have counter-cursed. And maybe Shringi Brahmana would have done another counter-curse. And there would be counter-curses back and forth. And in all that counter-cursing, Krishna would be forgotten. And this is how we waste time. But instead of reacting to the curse, Parikshit Maharaj, as a true spiritual leader, he did something very nice. He decided why to waste time. He decided to see that where there is smoke, there must be some fire. I have done wrong to Samika Rishi. And now Krishna has so nicely arranged that I should get this curse. It is nicely stated, specifically. He says in 1st canto, 19th chapter, 16th verse. It's a very nice verse. Tasyeva meghasya paravaresho vyasakta chittasya graheshu abhikshnam nirvedamudo dvijasaparupo yatra prasakto bhajamashudatte. And the translation sums up the mood of a leader. Parikshit Maharaj says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the controller of both transcendental and mundane worlds. He has so graciously overtaken me in the form of a Brahmana's curse. So Parikshit Maharaj did not see the curse of Shringi Brahmana as anything else. He did not see it as something that will agitate him, because he tolerated it as seeing it as coming as providential arrangement. The moment a leader accepts things instead of expecting things, when he accepts his congregation as they are and works with them to inspire them, half the battle is won. The moment he creates expectations, then you and I know in expectations in this material world, there is always disappointment. There has never been an expectation in this material world that has ever been met. And there will never be an expectation in this material world that will fully be met. Which brings us to the point of Mother Earth. That is why Prabhupada takes pains in the purport to say that Prithu Maharaj is compared so much to the quality of earth. Mother Earth is trampled upon. She is abused regularly. Nobody thanks her for the shade and everything that she receives. But does she stop all that? No. As leaders, it is sometimes a thankless task, because nobody may thank you, nobody may give you an expression of gratitude, but it doesn't matter. If you expect, it becomes disturbing. If you accept, you become peaceful. And that is why the quality of earth is very great. 11:7:37. That is the exact quality of earth that is given. Bhutai akramyamano api diro dhaivo vasa anugahi tadvidvan na chalen margad anvasiksham shite vratam. And what does it mean? A sober person, even when harassed by other living beings, should understand that his aggressors are acting helplessly under the control of the material modes of nature. This is very important for leaders. There will always be harassment from all quarters. There will be deadlines to meet, there will be expectations from devotees. That harassment will continue from the day you were born till the day you die. And if others don't harass you, you will harass other people. It is very natural. It is the nature of the world. But Bhagavatam tells us a sober person understands that even those who are harassing him, they are also acting helplessly under the control of material nature. This is where forgetfulness and forgiveness becomes very helpful. When we understand that devotees and living entities, they try their best, but the challenges of the modes of nature are very strong. Let us be tolerant, because we are also caught in that. Wouldn't we want someone to be tolerant of us? And in that same mood, when we serve devotees, it will be very wonderful. The best personality that comes to mind who tolerated is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you remember the episode of Amog Leela, Amog Leela was the son-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was invited by Bhattacharya to have prasadam at his house. And when Mahaprabhu declined at first, saying that this is food fit for a king, and I'm sannyasi, Bhattacharya said, "My lord, I know your true nature. You are consuming so much prasadam in Puri. You are being fed all the time in Vrindavan. You are being fed by 16,108 queens in Dwarka. So, my lord, you are actually consuming plenty of prasadam. Kindly come to my house and please have some prasadam." And Mahaprabhu said, "All right, I will come." So on that day, he comes to have prasadam. But Bhattacharya's son-in-law, Amog Leela, he's a fault finder. Not very tolerant, not very forgetful, not very forgiving, and not very kind. And he was just looking for some fault in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The moment Mahaprabhu sat down to have the array of dishes that were in front of him, I don't want to quote the dishes that were put there, because then we will think of prasadam. And we will forget to hear the class, because it's half the chapter anyway. But at that point of time, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya hears his son-in-law Amog Leela saying very loudly, "Is this person befitting to be a sannyasi?" Such an insult. Bhattacharya comes with a stick to hit Amog Leela, but he runs away. The second time, Amog Leela comes in and says something to that same effect. And at that point, he runs away again. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya falls at the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu with tears in his eyes. And he says, "Lord, today I've created such a great offense in calling you to my house and having you insulted in this way." Mahaprabhu's reply is astounding. Mahaprabhu smiles at Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and tells him, Amoglila is a young man. What is his offense? He is right. I am a sannyasi. Should I be sitting down with such a wide range of dishes? And that was Mahaprabhu's comment. And right after that, Amoglila contracted cholera and he was dying. And when Mahaprabhu heard it from Gopinath Acharya, he rushes to the hut. And while he is stopped by Amoglila, don't come in because I'm infectious. Mahaprabhu walks in and with his hand he puts it on the heart of Amoglila and reminds him of his true constitutional position. If Mahaprabhu did not show tolerance, if he did not show kindness, if he did not show forgetfulness and forgiveness, he would not be able to touch the heart of this Amoglila and purify him to the point where Amoglila was rid of the illness, stood up and danced ecstatically with the Lord. This simple but deeply significant episode is so important for us to absorb in our day-to-day behavior with all devotees. So we've come to the conclusion, but the start of the ILS. And I believe the theme of the ILS this year is to keep the wheels moving. And actually this term was borrowed by Srila Prabhupada from Indian Railways. And Prabhupada said that, I'm reading what Gopal Bhatta Prabhu actually stated in the website. It's the business of every employee, train driver, fireman or clerk to do their bit so that the wheels don't stop. If the wheels stop, the business stops. A parallel can be drawn. It is the duty of every leader to ensure that this great legacy that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us in the Holy Dham today continues. That somehow or another we build our spiritual lives on tolerance. We build our spiritual lives on kindness. We build our spiritual life such that a leader's door is never closed to any living entity, no matter what happens. The leader should be the last recourse for a pained devotee, for an aggrieved devotee. There must always be a door or a window open, because that is the way the wheels will continue. Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Thai Gaura Premanande. Are there reflections, comments? Yes, Prabhu. What happens? Do I take the... Okay. I think Prabhu had put up your hand.
Thank you, Prabhu, for a wonderful class. Probably, to most of us, the most famous verse we remember on tolerance is in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna tells Arjuna, Matra sparsha stukanteya shitoshna sukadukada. The difficult part of that verse to often understand is tolerating not just dukkha, but sukha. Could you please explain what Krishna is speaking about in terms of pleasure that we must tolerate, and why is that so dangerous that we have to learn to tolerate it?
Very nice point, Prabhuji. Thank you. It is more difficult to tolerate happiness because it is easier to absorb it. It is more difficult to tolerate happiness because it is very difficult to endure it. It has the capacity to sweep our senses away and make us forget Krishna. On the other hand, the difficulties and tragedies and reverses of life, though very painful for a devotee, have an interesting way of bringing us back to the lotus feet of their lordships very quickly. As an example, when I started Krishna consciousness, my mother would know when my exams were coming, because suddenly I would be chanting extra rounds. And when my rounds just dipped because I was happy the exams ended, she knew the exams had ended. And when 2 months later I suddenly picked up on the intensity of chanting, she knew the results were coming. Krishna is so kind that even in the painful situations of material life, he has given this consciousness the mercy to go to Krishna at difficult times, which is very, very much easier. But you're right, Prabhu. The challenge for devotees is when we have a little bit more happiness, we may translate that happiness in such a way that we become separated from Krishna, especially when it has elements of material nature in it. My understanding from experience is that in order to counter this challenge of sukh, it is always important to regularly cultivate the quality of gratitude. When we have gratitude that whatever is coming which appears sweet is not coming on our own endeavor but the mercy of the Lord, then that gratitude should be that we share it in the association of Vaishnavas. And if we can't share that, then it's material. But if we can share it, it will be spiritual. In that way, we can minimize the dangers of sukh. That is my understanding in limited capacity, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Sorry, Prabhu, just one and then, yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Everyone's different. How should we utilize this principle in light of serving together in a movement in which we are striving to maintain the highest spiritual standards? Standards simply imply uniformity, yet we're celebrating diversity. So how to reconcile this?
There is a principle in the material world that says a good leader is one who hires those who are more qualified than himself. If as spiritual leaders we can look to the strengths of those devotees who are in our congregations, see how different they are and what they bring to the table, and then encourage them and inspire them to put their efforts in it. Again, my personal experience is the other negative qualities that they may have that may be disturbing sometimes will actually reduce automatically. Because in positive energy, everything becomes positive. And in that way, a leader who accepts that there are many others in the congregation who are much more qualified, and my duty is only to facilitate. I become the plate on which all these different sweetmeats and savories and sabjis are going to be, but at least I'm a plate, and I keep them together until they're all consumed. The leader is not agitated, and the devotees become inspired. In that way, Prabhu, we celebrate diversity. We don't condemn it. Otherwise, what happens is that the tendency is to either condemn diversity and celebrate unity because it flows with what we want, or to unleash diversity, celebrate it, bring up goodwill among devotees, and you'll find the differences fall. Good example is Prithu Maharaj and Indra. After this chapter, the 100 sacrifice episode starts. And as you all know, Indra was the holder of the 100 sacrifice mantle. And Prithu Maharaj was going to reach there, 99. Indra becomes extremely worried. And he comes in different disguises, in different sannyas orders to steal the sacrificial horse. And after a while, Prithu Maharaj reacts. First he says, I will destroy Indra. Then the Brahmanas say, no, let us do it for you. And then Lord Brahma has to come and say, no, you both should not be doing this, because the aim of the sacrifice is to please Krishna. So when unity in diversity is put on the platform of what are we doing here? We are all here for the common aim of pleasing Krishna. Otherwise, tolerance has no value. Hiranyakashipu tolerated so much in his austerities. I don't think we can ever do it. But what was the aim of that tolerance? Destruction. So when leaders have unity in diversity principles in this way, then when Prithu Maharaj and Indra finally reconciled in the presence of Vishnu, they embraced each other. They recognized that their envy had to be adjusted. That is the purport in 4:20:18. in the 4th canto, 20th chapter, 18th verse. That's the seminal purport where Prabhupada says, when two Vaishnavas have a disagreement, it becomes their duty to adjust the cause of their envy. And this can be done by the Krishna consciousness movement. Is that helpful, Prabhuji? Okay, one last question.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So the translation, I am speaking about it. This King Prithu will be very, very kind to all citizens, even though a poor person may trample over the king's head by violating the rules and regulations, the king. So out of his causeless mercy will be forgetful and forgiving. As a protector of the world, he will be as tolerant as the earth itself. So here itself, this whole translation is out of context, means it is out of spiritual life. So myself is Gaur Kishore Das Swami, disciple of His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, blessed by him. Myself has got the position in this world as a ruler of this entire earth planet, as a saintly king and Lord Indra of this earth planet. Before this, I got the position of Radha Kunda Mahanta.
Are you
So,
referring
no, wait
to
a minute.
yourself?
So, why I am telling this translation itself is
Jai Grantaraj
is a
Srimad
breach of trust.
Bhagavatam ki.
Wait a minute. No,
Enjoy your ILS. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki.